83.
83. Am I supposed to repeat it?
We're supposed to repeat
I'm not
it.
sure. I'm not sure what the patterns anymore. It's been a while since we recorded.
It's been a while.
Once again.
It's been a while. So
once again, we're contemplating what to talk about and whether or not we're still here.
Still here.
Every time we're still here, the here is completely different and the still is completely different.
Yeah. Here, it feels like still there. Might be a better way to say it.
I don't even know where there is.
It's not here.
Yeah. So it's not here.
Definitionally.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a topics.
We have them.
We just came back from spring break, so we're still kind of
in a fugue
state. So we're contemplating what was the extension since last time we recorded. And I thought, okay, probably the most obvious extension would be, we've talked about all the healing and we talked about all the, the circumstances of this and circumstances and that and the reality and the perceived reality and awakening and not awakening and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then maybe, and I think this is the trajectory we've been trying to take is where do we go from there, right? Or if that's the case, then what? Maybe, right? If we're not here, then where's there? So kind of like that. Too far of a stretch. Right. And so from that standpoint, I thought, you said homelessness and I heard wholenessness.
Ness.
And then I've been contemplating, what I had crammed into my head when I've been contemplating is intention, right? And then in my dream, I was having a discussion with someone and they were talking about the troubles of their situation. I don't actually remember the details, but they were like, oh, this happened and that happened and this happened and that happened. And my only answer to them, oh, well, yeah, I guess it makes sense since that was your intention. And they were completely disconnected and did not see my point. And I thought, okay, I think the world does not understand that the circumstances of their life, our life, your life, everyone's life, is quite literally comes out of their intention. And most of us are blind to our intention. Because if going back to 80 episodes back, or all 80 episodes encompassing, if your intention's coming out of securing something or not going through something or avoiding something or striving to have something accomplished, if you're chugging your way towards something or away from something, generally out of fear, right? Or out of unsafety, but sometimes even out of lack or out of lack of love or, any kind of lack. And could I say that even as a positive thing, if you're jogging towards something as a positive accomplishment, maybe to some extent, even as you're chugging towards something and you think it is a positive way forward.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it's important to, neither of these are ideal, but the super obvious bad one is that you're running away from something. You're running away from you're afraid of something, or you're angry about something and you're trying to escape that. I grew up poor. I grew up in an abusive relationship. I grew up or abusive family. I grew up, whatever it is that in the past, and I don't want that anymore. And I'm going to do everything I can to run away from that. And I'm going to make a distinction between running towards something better and running away from something bad.
But still both of them are wrong.
But still both of them are not great. But especially running away from something bad carries with it that negative energy of the quote bad. So yes, it's something that you don't want, but the fact that you're even have that in your psyche as it's still, it infesting the brain to a degree. Mm-hmm. And so, if you grew up without, in a, let's say a poor household, and so everything that you do is under that under that guise, Chris Hemsworth grew up. It sounds like rather poor, and we watched that National Geographic documentary about him on Disney Plus, and he said that at one point he was talking to his dad about, how long do you have to pay the bank for the house, and he said, I'll die before this is paid off, something like that, and that just stuck with him until now. He's multi-millionaire, super rich, super successful guy, but he's still running away from poverty, despite the fact that he's, easily 1% of all humans on earth, easily. But he's still running away from that. And he still has this constant fear that can all disappear and it can all come crashing down at any moment. When in real life, that is not even possible. There's no way. He's probably got more loose change in his couch than most people have money, period. But he's being driven by that. And yes, you can achieve great physical 3D success with that. But just listening to him, you can tell that still weighs on him so deeply. That is still something that he probably has nightmares about. He probably thinks about it way more than he needs to. He hasn't let it go. And that's not really a healthy thing for him to lug along with him for however old he is, 30, 40 something years. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in that case, like in that example, the intention there is to run away from poverty or make sure you feel as safe as possible.
Right. He wouldn't even I don't even think he would word it as running away. I would think he's like, my goal is to make more money or get more security or provide for he would probably word it that way, but it's clear that it's being driven by running away from a negative back in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. And so in that case, right, the intention that you would actually carry forward in that action, or if it was cognitive, would be, I'm unsafe and I have to do a certain amount of things forward in order to make sure that I don't feel unsafe, right? Or I'm not good enough, right? And then I have to do a certain amount of things forward to make sure that I am perceived or feel good enough about myself, right? But then kind of like looping that in, that's the intention, right? That is the intention that in this case is driving the action. And so out of that intention, right, the underlying message that the universe or your immediate field is getting is there's lack or there's unsafety.
Right.
And then thus, that's, kind of like at the core, at the baseline, whatever your baseline vibration is, like kind of like the signature of you, of why you're taking action, is what universe hears as the truth, right? So universe then takes that word or takes that notion, because you're manifesting your own reality, then that becomes your forever truth.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're always chugging along and trying to not face that, undo it, not, avoid it.
I think
I say that because in the long run, if you were familiar with that, you would go, oh no, I don't want to spend the rest of my life trying to strive towards this and like have this be the driving factor of everything that I do.
That's not, and it's subtle. That's not saying, having money, having security, providing for your family, all these things, those are not necessarily bad things. I think they're maybe even neutral things. They're not good or bad. They're just things. Yeah. It's all about the reason and the motivation behind it. I would say that most, maybe everybody, but definitely the vast majority of people are doing this to some degree, probably subconsciously. I've been doing it my whole life. I didn't realize it until, last few years, but I've been doing it. I've been running away from the feeling of unloved, unwanted, not desired. I've been running away from that toward anything that will fill that hole in me through all kinds of things that aren't obviously that. Whether that's, doing good in school or doing good at work or getting a good job or whatever it is, all these things that don't, someone on the outside would never connect that. But that was my motivation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because, the vibration frequency of unsafety at the core, right?
Mhm.
Or being unloved, therefore unsafe, or being scared, therefore unsafe, or being unwanted, therefore unsafe, right? Or being poor, therefore unsafe. Maybe to some extent, like if you bring Maslow's pyramid back, right? That's the thing that like we find it the most important to always constantly be judging or gauging everything against,
Mhm.
right? So subconsciously, if you are not aware, then you're walking around recognizing, oh look, my gauge is right. I perceive everything or judge everything through that gauge. If I engage into this, how much unsafety will this bring in, right? Or if I don't engage into this, is this more love or less love? Do you know what I mean? And so because that is our intention, quite literally, that trauma is the definition of the intention. So in this case, if we are blind or unaware, right, the gnosis comes from you recognize what is the driving factor behind your actions, right? And if you're able to go deep and go, oh, well, yeah, this action or this sentiment is coming out of this trauma, then you have to realize that that is the manifestation, that is the manifesting energy that you're working with to design your truth, to design your reality.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, realizing it, I think is a huge step forward.
Yeah.
Because, now I can go, oh, I'm feeling this way. I think I should do this. I think I shouldn't do that. And I can go, oh, it's because, I want this outcome, or I don't want that outcome, or I'm trying to avoid this, or I'm, I can see that. And I can go, okay, well, that may not be the most kosher reason. May not be the most kosher reason for doing that. And the action itself may or may not still be the right or wrong thing to do. Again, that is a completely separate topic.
Mm-hmm.
But realizing that and going, okay, I can't even talk. But put that aside. I can go, okay, I see that inside me there is this desire to do or not do or avoid or achieve or whatever it is. Okay, take that, put it to the side, and now make another judgment. Is this the right thing to do? Realizing this and trying to slice that off.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always easy to do because there is still this emotional, like, yeah, well, but this feels safe. I should do this. This feels safe.
Yeah. Well, the ego comes in.
Yeah.
And the ego has this very interesting conversation where like, oh no, this is how I've always done it. This has always worked.
Right.
This is, this is the right thing to do.
Tried and true.
Yeah. And so like but it's interesting. I think I've said this on the previous podcast, but like it's very obvious when the ego comes in because it has this frequency for me, like I can identify, and it has this frequency that I'm very familiar with of how I've been running things, right? Like it's just kind of like a default, right? Like it pops in and then it wants to have a narrative, right? And it's interesting to acknowledge and to go, yeah, okay, I could see how this would be an ego soothing thing, right? And I'm not saying like a pompous thing, like, oh, but pompous thing, anytime somebody does a pompous thing for an ego, only thing that is
Right.
just basically
This
feeling small,
Yeah.
and then feeding the ego in order not to feel small.
Right. Ego means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. We're not talking about like egomaniac. I need to show off and drive my Ferrari and all that stuff.
Yeah, but that within itself
That
is
is
a
its
damaged
own
child.
That is its own thing. But this is
Yeah.
more like, I think, like the Jungian ego, the part of your psyche that is it isn't you, but a lot of people think it is them. It's
It's there to keep you safe.
Yeah.
But it's like a third party.
Right. But it's like people identify with it. They think that it is them. It is this part of your psyche that feels like you. And it feels like if it were to get hurt or die or something, then that's literally the end of you as a physical being and a spirit. The end. Worst thing possible. And so when someone tells you you're wrong and it, quote, hurts your ego, that's what it's hitting. It's hitting that part of you which needs to be right, needs to be loved, needs to be safe and secure, and needs to be all these things. And most people have some level of fragility in their ego, and it's hard to be wrong, hard to be anything that makes them feel unloved or unwanted, or any of these traditional ego damaging things. Yeah, that's the ego we're talking about, and it's weird and it's subtle, and it's like people don't realize that that's not them.
Well, especially if it's been running as you've been. Right, most of us, prior to any notions of like working on self-awareness, have been using that as us. Like we have quite literally only identified as that. Yeah. All the actions of us actually came out of that portion.
Yeah. Explicitly not part of the ego is the shadow, is all the things that we are, but don't really want to admit that we are.
Well, the ego is just trying to hide that.
Yeah. I get angry and I get jealous, and I want to go, I secretly want to go rob a bank. I'm not going to, but I have these desires and whatever that I don't really even admit to myself, but really they're there. That's like separate from this ego, which thinks it's just the bee's knees. It's just the best thing. God's gift to the world is my ego part of my psyche. Yeah. So that's the ego that, I don't remember how we got there.
No, just that, the ego hides the intuition or the intention behind actions.
Yes, it does.
Right. So like the ego would have you go and blindly act a certain way without any pause and reflection upon why you're partaking in this action, or why do you even feel a certain way.
Right. Because
the ego's goal is not to have you see the true intention behind the action.
The ego's job is to preserve the ego at all costs. And it can do all kinds of sneaky stuff to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny. Now, I don't know, maybe just, I'm assuming a lot of people would know what I'm talking about, but just through this separation between having the actions being driven by the ego, and then having the shadow being completely exposed or mostly exposed, let's say, and then having complete overlook over self, right? Like, oh, look, I would go this way with the ego, or look, I would behave out of this portion of my trauma. And just watching it, and one, it gets very interesting.
It does.
You're like, oh, well, look at this. This is just, I've said this before, basically kind of like a shit show.
That's the word that came to my mind. It's like, look at this shit show that is playing out or would be playing out, or, I would do this, or I still have the desire to do this, but, I'm not going to, I'm going to catch it, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting to watch all of this. Like, I think I've said this on a previous podcast. It's almost like watching like multiple personality disorder play out.
Right. It feels like it.
On the scale, and you're just sitting there watching like the whole thing. And it's a great place to be. But what I thought was what came with it that I didn't realize was the amount of freedom and liberation you get from not diving in to the energy flows of those systems, and how the body can actually be in a very relaxed and calm state when you're not having your ego run things, and when you're not having your trauma run things, and you're just kind of stepping back and functioning out of isness, like, because you're almost, you're functioning out of each moment. And then thus it's not draining at all. I'm not saying I don't get tired at the end of the day just doing physical actions or, whatever. But just the net difference in the amount of freedom that it feels.
It is freeing because
to just be.
Right. Because it's like I didn't realize how much I was a slave to my ego. It was running the show for my entire life. At least for the most part. It was calling the shots, and
Well, no, besides the calling the shots, in order to be able to operate out of that system, right? It's almost like you're running defense mode all the time. The ego's running defense,
yeah.
and the pain trauma running defense.
Mhm.
And so if two systems are running defense, one completely subconscious trying to hide itself from yourself, and the second one is subconscious trying to offset the hiding or to promote the hiding even more, and then add another doses of bullshit on top of it, it is exhausting to the system.
It's a fight. It's an internal fight.
Yeah, you're always fighting. You're always swimming against the current. That's how it feels like. And so, you can, and we talked about this just generalized drainage of prana, of energetic force that you're made out of, that comes out of that. And so
Yeah.
if most people live their life completely being driven out of ego and also completely driven out of the subconscious trauma and pain body,
Mhm.
it is completely exhausting to all physical form and
Yeah.
energetic form.
Yeah.
Your life force is quite literally dwindles down. And I don't even know, honestly, in my case, how I even made it into my 40s. Because the amount of energy that would take for me to be able to hide myself from myself is like exhausting.
Right. And it's it is, you get this extra person's worth of energy. And that doesn't mean that you can do twice as many physical things in the day necessarily, though you might be able to do more. But it frees up like another 50% of your brain and your spirit and your psyche to enjoy life.
Yeah.
Like,
Which is it's exhausting to always be in some sort of defense mode.
yes, but once you start to realize it and move past that, the ability to enjoy life takes on a new level. Like, the colors are brighter, the birds are chirpier, the
Mhm.
sunsets are more beautiful. Everything is just better. Everything's more. You can appreciate everything more.
Yeah. Well, I think you can actually finally just rest. Because at some point I was thinking that just means you're finally like resting. Do you know when some people have a near death experience and they go to the other side and they say how peaceful it feels and how freeing it feels. It feels like taking off like a tight shoe, and then you finally feel liberated and free. Do you know what I mean? To some extent, it's like one step towards that,
Yeah.
right? Towards like really towards your wholeness.
Right. I think, and when people come back from those near death experiences, I think they come back with a diminished, if not removed, ego that's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, look, I was doing all these things for all these wrong reasons. I was working at the bank because I thought money was the most important thing in the world. Nope. I quit.
Mm-hmm.
And, now I'm going to go do whatever it is that I've always wanted to do, whether that's spend time with my family, whether that's paint, whether that's travel. It doesn't even matter what it is, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like the the transitional phase of this is that I wanted to go to is that is how intention flows, right? Intention flows from whatever that space is. And in our case, right, if we're discussing the space of freedom or the space of flow or the space of liberation or just peace, then the intention would flow out of that awareness. And then if you're aware that your ego can stand back and take a pause, and if you're aware that your pain body and trauma can step back and take a pause, and you're just is, then that is your driving force, your intention into your manifestation of forward.
Yeah.
And it's so I say this because the wholeness of the world is a cumulative effect the collective, right? What we experience as a collective, right, is a cumulative effect of everybody's, individualized feed into what is the experience of Earth at this moment, right? And if you want to segregate it, you could almost say like a group collective here, or a group collective there, or and so the reality of that flow comes out of how potent the energy is that is being fed into the collective consciousness, right? And so the wholeness that one can feel whenever they become aware, when they become conscious, or that whenever they can separate the ego and see through it and, give it space, and then separate from trauma and pain body, and then give it space and just have it be this integrated version of you, and then be able to overlook everything and to just see everything for what it is, you gain this wholeness. And then your intention, basically, by default, becomes wholeness. Right?
Yeah.
Because the intention is not, you can actively walk in the world with intention, right? Like you say, oh, you know what? I'm going to go into this meeting, and this intention is going to be to showcase my project and see how it will be a net benefit to this community or this, group, and then have people get excited about it, have people adapt it in, and then, have it come into fruition. That is a, kind of like a physical, energetic intention you can put out into the world where you have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, we have an intention millisecond by millisecond without even us recognizing. So if the baseline of your functionality is just wholeness and peace, that is the baseline intention that you will be putting out there as your essence.
Yeah. It's weird. It's weird, and it's really subtle because, you've got the project to, I don't know what, build whatever it is. It doesn't even matter, for the community, something good for the community, right? You can approach that. I'm trying to run away from something bad for the community, right? Oh, the community is in disrepair, and then this project will fix it. So, you're driven from the negative. You could be driven from the, oh, I want this for the community for because this is better, which is less bad, but that's now you're running toward the positive. And everything that we do is enacting some sort of change, right? I take a sip of this coffee. I'm moving it from here. Coffee. Take a sip of this cacao, and I'm moving it from here into my belly. Everything that we do is creating some delta in the universe.
Mm-hmm. Through intention.
Through intention. There's no getting around that. That is kind of like the definition of an action is something is changing. It's all about why you're doing it. And if it's
awareness behind action.
Yeah, well, you have to be aware of why. And ideally you have a healthy why.
Yeah.
You can want better for the community via this project, or via contributing to it, or starting it, or spearheading it, whatever your role is also irrelevant. But why you want that is incredibly important.
Yeah. No, in this case, the example I was giving is when you become aware of the ego and you become aware of the trauma and you separate out, the only thing that is left is expression of yourself as love.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what wholeness is.
Yeah.
So if you are presenting a project out of that space, if I'm on this earth and I have a will and I have desire to facilitate what, the only thing really that comes out of that is extension of love, expansion of love, more love. And when I use the word love, I mean, I think when you reach wholeness, I think you reach a true understanding of what that love actually is.
Yeah.
That word changes.
Yeah.
And so if you are presenting something to the world and you are coming out of that wholeness, really the only thing that could possibly fall out of that, or why you would do that, is, because nothing needs to be done, right? In a reality, when you reach wholeness, that that's somebody, I've heard somebody say this, is like, when you reach peace and tranquility, there, you don't need to do anything. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? It's an interesting place to be because you're like, yeah, I don't need to do anything. I think everything is just beautiful as is.
Right.
And so the only action then you would even partake in is just, if I feel all this peace and love, how can I facilitate the flow of this love into this world? And, and that only comes out of wholeness. And if that comes out, in this case, it's a physical example of something that, I in the past would have participated in my business setting, right? Like had a project and I would present the project and whatever, right? But in this case, because it is flowing out of the intention, this underlying intention of wholeness, that is the baseline of my essence, right? Your essence kind of gets redefined. Like we talked about essence yesterday, right? When you reach that, your essence becomes redefined, and then you are wholeness.
Right.
And then your intention is out of that subconscious, just a flow of you as the essence. And then the only thing that you can bring into the world comes out of that. And so if it is a physical project that you are actually, writing out and putting an outline in, it's just an expression of that. It's just like, how can I take a portion of me that is the essence of wholeness and bring it into this world?
Yeah.
Like I was contemplating doing, right? Because like we came back and we're kind of in this fugue state and we're evaluating what us is or what doing is and what doing is not. And I was thinking, that's what it is. Everything is just beautiful and everything is whole, regardless of like how I would have perceived the situation. Do you see what I mean? The situations have not changed. The circumstances around us have not changed. But like there's this wholeness and beauty and peace in it all.
Yeah. The what comes to mind is how many times, like especially in the beginning of when we started our marketing company, and then at least for me through up until fairly recently, we'll take any job doesn't matter, because we need the money, we need the portfolio, we need the work. But did we really? Not really. But it felt like,
Well, it's because it was all out of a
it was,
body.
we were running away from not having money, not having security, whatever, even though we did, but it doesn't have to make sense is another important point. And there were many jobs that projects, customers, clients, companies, businesses, and individuals that we entered into business relationships with that we never should have, because, to begin with, we were a brand new agency. And so don't have the provable experience or the portfolio or the name recognition or whatever. And so we're competing on price, and that's not a great place to be. So we're doing bare bottom budget stuff and the type of people who want bottom budget stuff are not the people who really respect you or respect your service. And so we had a lot of really cheap customers, and we're like, oh, thank God we have these cheap customers, because at least we're making money. And cheap customers are the worst, because they're the ones who want the most for the least. Oh my gosh. And then later on, I ended up selling a couple clients that never should have had anything to do with. But I just felt like we needed the money. We needed the money. Got to have more money is always better than less money.
Yeah, I think you're trying to get out of a situation. That was your ticket out.
That was a ticket. Yeah,
because you're running away from something, and this is your solution towards
Right.
something. Right.
I was.
And then, but if you're running away from something, and this is your solution forward, to some extent, it is quite literally the lesson that you need in order to showcase what is it that you're doing when you're getting this client. Do you know what I mean? It's interesting because the universe will basically bring that to you. Because think about it. If you're running away from something, right? Deep down, it's like not being appreciated, not being loved, wanting to be in charge and in control of your own destiny. Right? then the action you engage when you're running away from that would be quite literally, oh, and this is the fix.
Yeah. No, I was.
And
I
if that's the fix, honestly, you're just manifesting the energy of this is how I feel when I enter into this project.
Yeah.
Then quite literally, you just get that in that project.
Right.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, people go when in my dream when people are like, oh, I had all these things happen to me, and this is what this is what the universe is doing to me. But the universe is literally bringing to you what you're asking. Like you're working with the tray, asking universe to put things into that tray that you're vibrating.
Yeah.
And then if you're entering into the new project while you're walking with the tray of, I will be disrespected, I'm disrespected, I am unloved, I'm underappreciated, that's the only thing the universe has anything to put into.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so by default, the universe does not have a different tray that you're carrying.
Right.
The universe does not know that you need anything else because you're not even asking the universe for anything else. You're just quite literally walking with, I'm unloved and I need to prove to people that I'm lovable tray.
Yeah.
Or I'm poor and I need to prove to people that, or prove to myself that I'm not poor. Well, the universe will just give you more poorness.
Yeah. The project that I think we're both thinking about. I was still employed full time, and I was on my way out. And when when I was leaving a job, I'm like, well, I gotta have a bunch of money as a safety buffer and this and that. And I took this project, and it was a good bit of money, and that's how I justified it to myself. Is this is a lot of money, but it really sucked, and I was not treated with respect in that business relationship at all. And so,
but that's the tray that
that's the tray that I brought in.
Like, the only time I think we're able to see the outcome of our subconscious is if we admit to ourselves that we're responsible for what we are experiencing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Because for the longest time, it was very easy to blame that person for everything, which is fine. I'm not saying that person was actually right. They were wrong for mistreating people. But that is a completely different story. And that is their own thing to handle.
Right.
What that person's pain body is its own discussion.
Right.
The only thing that you could do, or really the only thing productive that you could do, is go, what caused me to go into that relationship and stay in it? What was I trying to get out of it? What was I trying to run away from? And what portion of unwholeness within me caused me to be in that place at that time?
Yeah. Right.
And that's, that's kind of like the 101 that most I struggled with in the past, is because I have been trained, like even the way I was raised, I'm seeing these patterns with my mother, and then with just general upbringing in Ukraine, and less so with my father, but just automatic blame someone else, automatic it's someone else's fault. And so there's this, to begin with, within me, at least based on how I was raised and the country I was brought up in, you look out into the system to find someone to blame or to disempower yourself against.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so in that disempowerment, like, oh, well, no, it's not on me. It is because the country is fucked up. Oh, it's not on me. It's because this person is being unfair. It's not on me because they're being rude. And so, which all of those things actually could be true, but you would almost have to separate yourself from all of those items, right? In order to step back and go, okay, regardless of what the circumstances are, the country, the people, the unfairness, the rudeness, why am I in that place? Why am I facing this as my truth right now?
Right.
What tray am I carrying that allows the universe to put this input in?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so just that, it's a difficult place to start, to allow yourself to acknowledge responsibility, or to take on full responsibility. And I'm not saying like, hey, this is different from like, oh shit, I suck ass. Because you could go down that spiral. It could be very depressing to realize, oh my gosh, I'm responsible for everything. But I think that is the best place to be, even as as shitty as it makes me look when I recognize that, it is actually the best place to be. Because maybe the first time you're allowing yourself to face some truth that you have been running away from, in my case, let's say for 35 years, whenever this thing slapped me in my face.
Yeah. Yeah. So I contrast those jobs and whatever that I took from the wrong place for the wrong reason with other ones that either we took or we bid on or whatever that I was excited about in a different way. There was we didn't end up doing it, but there was that solar project, and I was just like, I was really excited about it. It was and I don't know about the people or the company, but the project itself seemed interesting and good.
Yeah, but in that case, like I think in that cases they had no budget whatsoever.
Right. And it didn't come to fruition, and that's fine. Whatever.
Well, and then a lot of people just shoot the breeze too. So, your excitement into the project in that case also needs to get evaluated against why. And I think the why is I'm bored with my life and this will give me a purpose.
There may be some of that too.
And that's still not
That's still not the right reason.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes if the project comes in, because we're still in the business world, if it comes in and you're excited because this is going to give you a purpose in life and it's going to give you an excuse to learn something new.
Yeah,
it has
I don't know.
to.
I mean, maybe there may be some of that, but there was also like it felt like a good project. It didn't feel like a skeezy project.
No, I mean, it was for a good cause.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, that is in alignment with you. But if we didn't get it, there's a reason of why, right? And that's a whole other, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's an exploration you need to do. Of why not, right? What is the misalignment there, right? To begin with, whenever the self-discovery process happens, there, as you step back more and more and more, if you're not willing to do the work to go in and research of like, okay, what is it that I'm actually excited about? Because in that case, it's excitement, right?
Yeah.
But there's no way it's 100% kosher. There's something in that excitement that is still trauma-based or ego-based or, excuse-based. One, always be evaluating, right? Like you always have to evaluate of why is that you wanted it? What was it going to facilitate for you that at the time you didn't feel, right? Because it wasn't even money, because we were almost willing to do that for no money. Because the amount of time it would have taken us to do that was like not worth per hour. Right. And then, to some extent, yeah, I mean, I think with me, it was trying to think, that was like what, 3-4 years ago. So participating in something that is in a net good for the world, right? Like, like environmentally aware or helping the needy or things like that, kind of hits that portion of the soul where you feel like you're fulfilling some sort of purpose, right?
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, the fulfillment of that purpose has to come out of the flow of being in love, as opposed to the need to flow and fulfill some sort of purpose.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
It's subtle.
It's subtle. Both of them would facilitate the same result as you participating in this project, and then something good flows out of it.
Right. I mean, you can do it for the completely wrong reason too, and something quote good may still come out of it. But
in my case, I think at the time, whenever this was, I was looking to dive more into the projects that were more in alignment with the greater good of the universe.
Yeah.
But out of the need of me to dive into the projects that were in the greater good of the universe.
Right. I mean, over the last few years, even if they come, we won't even bid on something that's like completely out of line anymore. And I don't even think they come that much.
No, nothing comes.
Nothing comes. I mean, we get the RFP for this or that, and it's just like, okay, deleted.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we like.
and that's not to say, ooh, it must be nice to be able to turn down jobs that aren't in alignment with you. It isn't. It isn't that. It's that when I think as a partnership, as a company, our alignment frequency has changed. And so only things that are in alignment or close enough are even appearing on our horizon anymore.
Yeah, but
And the things that are not are falling off.
Yeah. And I was thinking, this is another evaluation to be made is when people pursue making of money, right? Which is like what Earth is. Like you have to make money. Like you graduate from college and get a job, or you graduate from high school and get a job, or you're in high school and you get a job because you need to make money, right? Which is like totally normal in society. Most of the society is that is just like, oh yeah, that is just, especially in the Western world, that is what you do. Like, oh yeah, the whole purpose of you going through college and high school is to then make money. And I don't know how much of that flow, how much of that energetic interpretation or the social norm actually comes out of a right place at all.
Right. I mean,
the idea of that even being a generalized pattern of operation, I would say is wrong within itself, because most of the kids in high school who are kind of like falling into that cycle would only fall into that cycle because the parents are telling them, oh, make sure you pick a job that does, pays well. Or like, oh, high school, you need to go get a job so you know how it is to work and make money. So you know how it is to be poor and to make your minimum wage of whatever it is right now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I know that was the case for me. When I came, in Ukraine, we were struggling for money. I came to the United States, we're dirt poor, mom, dad working minimum wage. And I started on minimum wage in high school, which was the delta between zero and minimum wage was still good, right? But the idea is like you always have to work to make sure you have money, to make sure that you're safe. And if you can get a better job to make more money, that's more safety. Do you know what I mean? That was just the innate programming of me from was it given to me straight out? Was mom and dad like, okay, here's a piece of paper and this is what's written on it? No. But through a lot of extrapolation and personal experiences and like the feelings of unsafety, that was my definition. That was what I have come to take on as my truth. And so the innate vibratory frequency on my end of why I'm walking around trying to make money has only been out of that place.
Yeah.
And only now, right? Like only now when I'm feeling this generalized peace, I can step back and go, have we ever wanted or participated in money making out of anything other than that?
I grew up in a very squarely middle class family and always had basically whatever I wanted within reason. But I got a job in late high school. But that was to just buy more crap that I didn't need, right? First thing I bought with my first paycheck was a back in the day you could switch out the stereo head units in the cars. So I bought a new one of those that would play MP3 CDs because how cool is that?
Yeah, but to you, that's freedom. So what you're pursuing is freedom.
That's where I was going, was that to me, money wasn't safety. Money was freedom.
Yeah, but freedom is safety.
Freedom / time. But I could see time as being freedom too. So I saw money as freedom and time. I can spend time to make money, or I can spend money to buy back time.
Which is also wrong.
Which is also wrong. But that's right? How I looked at it was, if I have If I have $100 million in the bank, ta-da, I don't have to work anymore. And now I have all this time. I've bought time back.
Yeah, but that's an idea that there's a time scarcity.
Yeah, well, right, because, the clock's ticking, I've got till, best case, I've got 100, got to 100 years. So I've got 55 years left. Let's, don't want to spend them working. So, and that was my mental calculus that I did.
Yeah, but that's the intention. You walking around with the tray in front of you saying universe.
I'm looking at a non-existent watch counting down 55 years, apparently.
Right. The tray that you're walking around is universe, there's limited amount of time.
Limited amount of time.
Put
right?
that into
to you,
my
there's
bucket.
a limited amount of money. To me, there's a limited amount of time.
Well, to me, it's unsafety. It's
Right.
mitigation of unsafety.
Yeah. So they're similar, but they're different pain bodies that the money is there to soothe.
Yeah, but the truth is, when you recognize that and when you see the ego was like, oh, yeah, that's completely right. That's completely right.
Oh, I had it completely justified. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the pain body is like, well, we don't know any other way. So,
Yeah,
I mean, what is there? And ego's like,
could die tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
Right. I can logic it all out.
So between the pain body being active and the ego is doing everything for you to avoid addressing it, unless you're willing to see those two facets of your personality, you would never recognize what is the stray that you're walking as and what is the intention that you are bringing forth, that you're asking universe to give you.
Right.
And what are you manifesting for yourself? What you're drawing into the stray as like, this is my truth.
Right. And in those cases, you're a slave to the money. You're a slave to the money in order to stay safe. You're a slave to the money in order to stay free, in my case, or have some sort of buffer of future time banked or some, you're compelled to do it. You're compelling yourself. Your ego is compelling your 3D self to go make more money. And there's no way out of that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can remove yourself from that, you may still need money to pay the mortgage and pay the electricity and the bills and whatever. That may still be true. But you're free from there may still be a 3D need, quote, need to do it, but you're free from the psychological need to do it, the spiritual need to do it.
Yeah.
And in doing so, it is possible that you may be free from the physical need to do it, or it may be possible that it will work itself out in a way that you can't comprehend. I'm not saying win the lottery, although maybe win the lottery. Maybe it's, I got a better job that's more aligned with what I want to do, with my purpose or my desires or my skills or abilities or whatever, and it makes more money and it's easier and it's more fun and it no longer feels like work. Now this is the type of thing I would do anyway, and now I'm getting paid for it, so this is great. Those are the type of things that magically work themselves out when you remove yourself or remove that. I don't think which way I want to word it. When you stop doing things for the wrong reason, when you identify the wrong reason, which is difficult on its own, and then stop doing things for the wrong reason, which is even harder.
Yeah.
It's your ego is super sneaky here, and right. We're here talking about it, and I can feel it fighting. Like, yeah, but that obviously this is a good thing. It's in there. It's just fighting to keep it, and I can feel that internal struggle to some degree, trying to justify how things have always been.
Well, that's the thing is, if you have never experienced any other way of being,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of surrendering and not pursuing patterns of your operation, especially if they're for the wrong reason, seems life-threatening.
Right.
So the ego is like, no, the second you stop wanting money, or in order to get more time, the world will end.
Yeah. No, that's how it feels.
Right. And in my case, the second you stop wanting money, I don't know, unsafety will be your true. I don't
The
know.
roof's going to collapse.
Sure.
Literally.
Quite literally. Right. Right. And so, right. And there, there's so many nuances of these trays that we carry, right? There's so many, like why we carry these trays, right? And what is it that we're asking the universe to put into that tray is very, I guess, obscured if you're not willing to dissect it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, like having not worked for like a week when we were completely not working. I guess you worked a little bit. I guess and I worked a little bit, but right, like stepping back from that work and then kind of just evaluating the world for what it is, and now having to step back into work makes me draw and then like, wait, what is it that I want out of this?
Yeah, me too. Because there's, I came back, and maybe you came back too, with a little list of things that have collected over the week. That no, I've got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. And I'm like gauging my reaction to these. Some of that's based on who it is, and some of that's based on what it is. Is this easy or is this hard? How do I feel about this particular client and whatever? And it's like, it's really interesting to go, oh, look at that. Here's something I don't want to do for someone I don't want to do it for. That feels very different from something I'm, excited about. I'm excited about doing this work for this person. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that, all work should be doing something you want to do for someone you love to do it for necessarily. That would be great. But, doing work you don't want to do for someone you don't want to do it for is there for a reason too. There's something, there's a lesson in that. There's a meaning in that too.
Yeah, but if that still exists in our life, that we're doing work for somebody we don't want to do, for the work we don't want to do it, why are we doing it?
Right.
It's not out of abundance. It's not about wholeness, right? Because right now it is very easy to basically see, okay, when I'm in wholeness, what is it that I'm actually doing? And, currently, I would say it's not much. Do you know what I mean? And to the ego, that's threatening, right?
Right.
Just going, yeah.
But now that means if you're happy, you're not doing any work. But if you don't have any work, you're not going to have any money. You're not going to pay your bills. I'm going to die.
But in that wholeness, I don't see it any other way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like maybe in a way, like it's another like existential identity crisis, in the sense that quite literally, once again, this another version of my identity that I have created and I have facilitated and I have drawn into existence does not serve a purpose. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's what identity crises are, is they're not that you don't know who you are, is that you just recognize that, I mean, you and I have known for a while that there's no such thing as an identity. But like the identities have to shed away.
Right.
But the ego has to not let them, but you have to basically negotiate with the ego. Because the ego holds on to the identities in a very visceral way.
Right. There's no such thing as an identity, but it sure feels like there is.
Yeah. Right.
And it sure feels like that's the most important thing in the world. And I'm not exaggerating when I say the most important thing in the world. I mean, literally nothing is more important in the world than preserving that ego identity.
Yeah.
Easier to die than to let go of that.
Right.
I mean, no hyperbole there. It is literally easier to be shot in the head than it is to let that go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because letting that go means
When it's
I don't know.
unknown, and
It's
unknown is
unknown.
scary.
It's unknown and it's scary. And
Yeah,
but it's
that's what
certainly
it is.
it's certainly worse than death, whatever it is.
Right? That's what it comes down to. The ego holds on to everything because everything that we have so far constructed somehow offers us parameters of safety because it is known. I mean, this is kind of like to the same extent, not to go into negative, but like that's why people stay in abusive relationships, right? Is because, oh, well, if nothing else, that's known. And it's scary for me to step into something that is unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the worst case scenario, I guess. But in our case, like, oh, why do I make money? Oh, I don't, because I have to, because otherwise it's unknown.
Otherwise, we starve to death, and the roof collapses, and everybody dies. But it's worse than that somehow.
Great. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, and so yeah, like maybe this is just an example of evaluation of how unraveling the intention, subconscious intention, the tray that you carry that has the universe, give you what you're asking for is seen. And once you see the tray that you carry and then you go, why am I carrying this tray? Why am I asking universe for something specific, right? Why am I seeking something specific? Because in that wholeness, I think you kind of recognize that there's no need to be walking with the tray at all, right? The idea that you're carrying a tray asking for something is kind of comical. Because the wholeness has everything, and so therefore there's nothing to ask for. Do you know what I mean? And that's an interesting like retrospect of reality, is that if you're walking around with a tray, that means you're not feeling whole. And then there's really easy to go, why am I not feeling whole? Well, what is it about this situation that causes me not to feel whole?
Right. I mean, you look back at people throughout history who I imagine felt pretty whole. I imagine Jesus felt pretty whole.
Yeah.
I imagine the Buddha felt pretty whole. But these were not wealthy people. I mean, I guess Buddha was wealthy, but he gave it all away, went on his vision quest or whatnot. And here he is, enlightened and whole, but probably rather poor. Jesus too. He's not lugging around sacks of money, and the same with his
But
followers.
Why would you? Right? If you're
And-
whole, why? What is money?
And that's where I'm going. Is that the universe provided for them in ways that are different from our idea of a 9-to-5 job. Not that there's anything wrong with a 9-to-5 job. That's an option. But we close ourselves off to the idea that there is even anything other than that that's possible. I personally don't know what that looks like because I'm locked into the same mindset. It's like, okay, if I just stop working and do zero more work from now on and make zero more money from now on, that does sound scary to me.
But then you're walking with a tray and saying wholeness and surrender looks like me doing zero work and making zero money. That's a definition within itself, that you're
Right.
walking around with that tray, asking universe to give you that.
Right.
That's out of fear.
Yeah, it is. No, I mean, I see it. I
So-
see it.
Yeah. So my point is, only out of wholeness can you walk
Right.
and not have to carry a tray
Right.
asking for something.
Right. So they had it right. And I'm still work in progress to get there.
Do you not see
I
place
do.
of wholeness?
I see it.
It's
I certainly get glimpses of it. I'm not always there, but there are, but it's more and more frequent. The longer time goes on, that I understand it. It's almost like,
but it's a different phase of consciousness.
yeah, and phase meaning like frequency or plane.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because you get to
Or, maybe
overlook the
even
ego and you
as
get to overlook the pain and trauma
yeah,
and give them credence.
yeah.
You have to integrate
Right,
them and befriend them.
That's the
in a
shadow of
sense-
things.
But it's in a sense that I could see how everything that I have known thus far has been me functioning out of remediation of trauma and pain, and everything that I have acted blindly out of this form of ego has been there to preserve me out of all the fear points that the shadow of pain and trauma inserts, and ego has basically been there as a toolkit for that, right? That's kind of how I see it. You have all of these pains and traumas that are still active and very much vibratory with you as the inner child that has never healed them.
Mhm.
And then because they're so inflamed and they're kind of like pulsating in these energetic influxes, like fix me, this is a thing, this is a thing, this is a thing. That's really raw, right? And that's very if it's not addressed, you're basically walking around raw, right? And vulnerable because you're always trying to, because basically you're always trying to address it. The pain body and trauma is always like, address me, address me, address me, address me. And the right way to address it is actually feel the pain and the trauma. Like quite literally acknowledge, like, oh, look, I feel a lot of scarcity and pain in regards to money being less than. And then allow that to sit and like flow through you, right? But again, because cognitively, we as children do not have the capacity to understand that, acknowledge that, and then being able to allow that processing to take place, the ego steps in and goes, okay, well, we're not going to feel this because that hurts, but how are we going to address it otherwise? If we feel this, because the ego will say, okay, we feel this, how are we going to address it otherwise? Oh, well, we're going to work really, really hard and we're going to hustle for the rest of our life, 9 to 5, and then maybe have another job and then, do this hustle and do that hustle so we don't feel unsafe, right? And it takes these little sections and it provides these ridiculous solutions to overall larger picture of, oh, I just don't feel safe. And it's not about the money. And it's not about the love. It's just about me feeling vulnerable. But that vulnerable is a pulsating, unfathomable pain and unfathomable trauma and unfathomable overwhelm that we couldn't process as children. Right? And so if we continue not to address that as adults, ego does not have a solution for that. Ego has these microcosm that it has created that you can basically dive into and pretend like everything's okay.
Yeah.
But the unfathomable pain that is pulsating is still there, right? But if you don't step back and go, okay, yeah, like there's a lot of pain there that I can still acknowledge and allow that to flow, nothing was going to happen. And if you don't address the pain, the ego will be your only tool to feel like you're not dying.
Yeah. I mean, I think the ego is most people's only tool.
Yeah.
But
Which is right. That's
out of default.
the positive psychosis that we talked about in that episode and that kind of like brought it in ever since is basically describing the actions of the ego, the split personality disorder that provides soothing to the mechanism of feeling completely overwhelmed as a child. Because that overwhelm is a childlike mentality, right?
Mhm.
Like when you feel that if you're going to stop working, the overwhelm that you feel without going into like, and then this will happen. Like you stop working, right? Before you even process like, oh fuck, before you even go there, it's just overwhelmed. Because like, it's an explosion of unknowns. And besides the fact that your logical mind can come up with 200,000 different reasons of why you shouldn't do that, it's just an explosion of unknowns. And then your ego will come up with those 200,000 different versions of why you shouldn't do that to soothe the overwhelm. But the overwhelm is just a system, energetic system, running haywire because that energy was never integrated into you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of nuanced, but it's very simple, but that's what it comes down to. The influx does not need a story. Right? The influx of energetic system does not need a story. It just needs to be acknowledged. But the ego has stories while will never be solved.
Yeah. The ego has all kinds of sneaky reasons, true or not.
It's not true. None of it is true because it's not addressing the root cause, which is an influx of energetic system that you experienced as a child that never worked its way into your system. Like you're just sitting there as right, overwhelming anything. That overwhelm that you feel that is bigger than death is that unprocessed energy having been trying to just flow, that you've been trying to suppress, quite literally suppress and cram it into the tightest little ball so it's invisible from childhood. Right? I mean, I don't know if you can feel that, but
Yeah, I can.
Right.
Right.
That's how it is.
And the specifics of what it is probably vary from person to person.
Doesn't matter.
But it doesn't matter. It's for some people it'll be, oh, if I stop working, I won't have money, and I'll lose everything. Or some people it'll be, oh, if my identity is so tied up with my job or career that I don't know who I am, or whatever the specific flavor is will be a little individualized. But it's just another story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like the ones that like I don't feel that my identity is wrapped up in my job. So it's not like, oh, if I stop working, I don't know who I am. See, that's difficult for me to even relate to. But I'm sure there are people who that's more important than, the actual financial reasons, which is what I can wrap my head around. So it's really interesting because like I don't get it. Like that isn't my particular flavor of fucked upness. Mine's over here with the money. It's not about the identity. I can't even relate to that. And the idea that there are other people who that's the thing that maybe the money, yes the money, but that's the part that really would hurt. And they're like, yeah, the money's its own thing. I can take care of the money, but who am I if I'm no longer CEO of Acme? Who am I?
Yeah, in Western society, the identity of success, which is what most people pursue when they don't have an identity of just isness, is tied to monetary gains. They kind of
right. There's
link
there's a
themselves
lot
together.
of link and a lot of overlap. I kind of differentiate between the two.
No, I know they're different. They're different. Yeah, they're different things. But the Western society has linked them.
Yeah.
And so if you're pursuing social norms based on societal patterns, societal patterns have linked those two together. Right? In the United States, it's almost impossible to be a successful CEO and not have like, and because or therefore, either or, there's a dollar amount associated with it. Do you know what I mean? And even though the dollar amount might not be your particular flavor of soothing your pain body,
right,
and the CEOness is
right. Well, you
the
can
one
imagine,
comes with the other.
You can imagine the CEO of some, or the president of some nonprofit or something, and it's not that they're making all that much money from it if they're paid at all. But it's the title and the prestige and the whatever, the connections and the whatever that that's almost what I mean by that. It's easy to see CEO of some massive company. Yes, obviously they're making lots of money.
Yeah.
But there's also the identity of it.
Yeah, well, there you go. Here's a two example that just came into my mind. Warren Buffett. Okay. Super rich. I don't know how rich, but let's say he's rich. Does not have a pain body of seeking identity in his action, because all of his actions come out of. No, I'm completely going intuitively on this. I don't know anything about Warren Buffett.
No, he seems surprisingly put together for an incredibly rich guy.
Well, no, so the amount of money that he has accumulated and the way he functions in the world does not come out of the I seek identity in my success. His pain body is I need money because I'm offsetting the amount of scarcity, right? So I'm not saying right now, but at least to begin with, when he first started pursuing money, it came out of not the need to prove himself and then seek identity in his CEO-ness, but it is, I need money.
Right. I mean, he like almost famously drives some old truck and lives in a very, reasonable house.
But that's money. That's like, I need money.
But, I mean, the whoever your opposite example is, probably has multiple fancy cars and, multiple fancy vacation houses and private jets and whatever. And not that there's anything wrong with those, but those, I imagine, are part of mystery person's identity over here.
Well,
But Warren Buffett he's not blowing money on flashy things. It's not about, look at me. It's not about all that.
Yeah.
It's not. It's
about money.
It may be about money, but it's not. His identity is not wrapped up in it. In the same way that if your identity is wrapped up in it, it would extend out to, and look at me, I've got this fancy car, and look at me, I've got this fancy house, and look at me, I've got all this, which I know money buys, but it's not, look at me, I'm Warren Buffett.
Yeah, no, it's I just have money.
I imagine Warren Buffett, if Warren Buffett could just be anonymous, that would be cool with him.
No, yeah.
It's not the fame.
It's the money.
It's the money.
Yeah. And the other one that came into my mind, which is very interesting that this popped in because it's kind of in the industry where it should be obvious this is the case, is the Mind Valley guy. Right? It's just, for all intensive purposes, what Mind Valley is like, spiritually enlightenment or personal growth or betterment situation.
Uh-huh.
But the Mind Valley guy is only doing it for fame,
prestige,
yeah. and positioning in the world.
And I'm sure he's made a good bit of money from it too.
Yes,
but that's a bonus.
Yeah, but that's a Western world coalescing of the two. But the pain body that he's striving to overcome is lack of self-esteem, right? Not being seen, not being loved, not being looked at as high and mighty, right?
Mm.
And so two, I'm assuming, very successful people, but very different approaches of why, right? And it's interesting that with the Mind Valley, it's literally something that should draw awareness of why you're doing things.
I mean, there is a lot of awareness of, but a lot of it, I think, is business centric too.
Oh, is it?
It's a lot of like.
I guess the ads that I get are always spiritual awareness.
I think it's just as much Gaia as it is, Forbes or something. It's.
Oh, okay.
I think there's a lot of how to make the perfect pitch deck, how to sell, how to whatever. I think there's a lot of that content available in Mind Valley as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about Mind Valley itself, but I'm just in the energetic frequency of Warren Buffett and why at least initially he dived into the world of making money, and then the energetic frequency of whoever this dude is,
or maybe it's the intersection of how these spiritual techniques can help you better with your life and also in business.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah. But I'm just talking about the signature, right? The intention of the person and what tray they're walking into this world is what they're lacking, right? And Warren Buffett's was, I'm going to do everything I can to be as smart as I can, as clever as I can in order to make the most amount of money so me and my family feel the most safe, right? Because I'm assuming he lived through Great Depression and I'm not going to starve again. You know what I mean? I don't know, actually, I lived through Great Depression. I'm just assuming.
Old. I don't know if he's that old. What was that, the 30s? Is he 90 or 90 something?
I have no idea. Or if nothing else, he was raised by the mother
certainly
and
his
the
parents
father
went through the Great Depression, yeah.
Who lived through the most tremendous shock, as far as not having food. Do you know what I mean? Mm. And so if you're a product of that and you're coming right out of that, then you're going to do everything forward. Walking with a tray is, universe, I don't have enough money and I don't have enough safety. Please put more of that into my bucket.
What's interesting is how I think it's still the case. He famously is not leaving wealth to his children or grandchildren or anybody. It's just I've amassed hundreds of billions of dollars or whatever it is.
Does he even have children?
Yeah, remember his daughter, adult daughter, wanted a didn't even want money, just wanted a loan at 0% interest to renovate her kitchen or bathroom or something. And he's like, go to the bank like anyone else.
Yeah, but what's the pain body lesson that he's trying to teach her? Survival skills?
Maybe, or that, I don't know. But he's like, he's going to give it all. When I die, it all goes to charity. But like, I think there's a multi-year whatever, because you can't just sell $100 billion worth of stock without having lasting impacts on the market or whatever.
I mean, I'm just extrapolating. I don't know anything about him, but if the pain body is money, right? Part of it would go into then the skill set and the tenacity to survive.
Yeah.
Right. And he has the skill set and tenacity to survive, to start companies, to buy companies, to arbitrage, to merge and consolidate and whatever, right? Or resell. So if you don't process that and you carry that forth, the last thing you want your children to do is not have the skill set and the tools to be able to handle themselves once you're dead.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So as far as soul growth goes, right, pain body wise, if you're analyzing that, no, of course, I'm analyzing them from my pain body. Like, okay, well, when I die, I want my children to know how to be savvy or how to not like end up on the streets alone, homeless.
I want them to know that too, but at the same time, I want them to here's what I've accumulated through my life to help you along.
Yeah, but
don't spend it all in one place.
But if you have a pain body and trauma from your father kicking you out and saying, you're not, go, I'm not going to give you anything. I don't have anything to give. Go do things on your own. Mm-hmm. Right. There's just that could be looping in there. Of like, oh, I cannot rely on anything or anyone. I need to learn my own way of doing things. I need to be smart enough, and I need to be clever enough, and I need to work hard and, in order to make money. Safety. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, I can kind of correlate to that, as far as like why the control or why the wisdom or why the need to process and analyze and plan ahead is to mitigate the unsafety, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So wholeness comes out naturally, and then thus intention then naturally flows out of that wholeness. And if it's not wholeness, then unfortunately the intention is corrupt.
Right.
Or if you were to present and go, wait, is this the intention that you want to offer to yourself? Like, is this what you're asking universe to give you?
Right. Most people would say no if you were to stop them and
explain to them what is it that they're actually vibrating and what they're asking universe to put in their tray. They would go, no, I don't want this.
Right.
But
still
blind.
that's what they're bringing.
Yeah. And so the healing, right? If not here, then there. The there has a potentiality to be whole only when we are vibrating the wholeness of our being and then not carrying the tray asking the universe for anything. Because in the wholeness, there's nothing to be asked for. Which is, like diabolical in some way because it is simple, but completely misunderstood and unseen and unrecognized by most people. Because to step back and not ask universe for something feels suicidal.
Right. It's, not even just ask universe, but go get it myself because I'm the one who has to do it.
Or just not want anything, right? Because that's what it comes down to is when you're in the wholeness, there's no need or want for anything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
To just be at peace with how things are.
Yeah. And then therefore the only action that you would partake in would not be out of anything other than I just feel immense amount of love and wholeness that vibrates within me, and I want to bring that into the world. And that does not actually have a desired outcome behind it. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just the action of you participating love into the world within itself is enough.
Right.
And there's no desired outcome. In fact, desired outcome doesn't even have to exist.
Right. And it's almost hard to wrap your head around how, well, if you're bringing love into the world, that's in order, you're trying to increase love in the world, right? Because you're doing something. There has to be some sort of, you're doing something to create a delta. You're trying to change something from A to B. If you do anything, the very nature of doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's almost paradoxical.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because, the book is the word of change, right? And maybe at the top of the book, at the end, there's no change. Do you know what I mean?
Spoiler alert.
No, I think that might be it. I mean, right? Because in the long run, at the end, it's just once you find self, it's just being, right? And then you just find self. But find self is all of this that we have recorded so far is this complete integration into maybe knowing self for the first time. And I think the only time you can know self is when you have that complete peace and pause and you actually realize the rat race of everything else.
Yeah.
And how draining it is, how overwhelming it is, how much fight, how much insecurity there is in there.
Pointless it is.
Well, yeah, but it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And when you're just in that pause, like you can only feel wholeness there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.